AM 96.3 FM, The Source.
All right, just about 20 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. David Baldacci is on the phone. He's the author of a book called One Good Deed. He's also the co-founder of the Wish You Well Foundation, which is a nonprofit dedicated to supporting literary efforts. And his book is doing really well. In fact, this is one of many that have done really well. Let me just read you what it says on Amazon. You ready for this, Robin?
I'm set.
In 1949, when war veteran Aloysius Archer is released from Carderock Prison, he is sent to Polka City on parole with a short list of do's and a much longer list of don'ts. Do report regularly to the parole officer. Don't go to bars. Certainly don't drink alcohol. Do get a job. And don't ever associate with loose women.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, man.
There you go.
I feel so bad for him.
He knows the rules.
David, good morning. Thank you for being on the show with us today.
Good morning. Thank you.
Where are you?
I'm I'm in Southern Virginia right now.
All right. Well, tell me about that. I want to ask a little bit about the foundation you started, but tell me about the book. Let's be fair to the book.
Yeah, it's set in 1949, post-World War II. Archer fought in the war, came back, and got into some trouble, but went to prison for a crime he didn't commit. And once he got out, he had to serve his parole for 3 years in this place called Polka City, which is a little town and wanted to be a big town. And when he got there, sort of all hell broke loose. There were murders, and he was suspected. And it turns out the town has a lot of mystery and intrigue behind it and a lot of secrets. And people there are not really what they seem to be. And I picked the 40s just because I love that time period and a lot of great things. I love crime noir, and it's a perfect time period to set the crime noir stories. Two of my favorite films are Chinatown and The Big Sleep, and this is kind of in the same sort of genre as those. And it's a period I wanted to explore. I had a lot of fun writing the book.
Is it easy to write in that time period when in today's world we have so much at our disposal? I mean, just the simple idea that you can ask your phone, who invented the cotton gin, and it'll tell you. I mean, back then, the world was so different, right?
I had to turn all of that off. And there was no weather app to tell him what the weather was going to be, and there was no Alexa to help him with stuff. But it shows that how dependent we are on those things these days. And back then, people just had to depend on themselves to go from A to B and to get from one place to the other. And also, since there are detectives in the story and there's a mystery to figure out, you also had to be conscious of the fact that you couldn't call on CSI to come in and forensic everything. There's no DNA or no computers, and
But I think
sort of rely on your gut and read people and that's really how you solve crimes back then.
And one of the things I like about that, what you just said, is that if you, for example, if you go to some old towns that were, like Rob and I went to this old lighthouse that was built in the 1700s, and it looks perfect. I mean, every line is perfect. And we said they didn't have any computers or nothing. So the same thing with detective work or any kind of where you have to think and not actually use a device to do the thinking for you.
Yeah, we do rely on a lot of things like that. I mean, I have two kids in their 20s, and I doubt either one of them could read a paper map, or and if they were trying to get to between A and B without a navigation on the car, I'm not sure they can actually do it. And we do rely on a lot of things. But back then, people didn't have that option. So they just had to rely on themselves. I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just saying it's very different.
Correct.
And you had to do a lot of research on this era to make everything make sense, because your book is very well written.
Yeah, I really had to. It was a time period that, again, I was really interested in. But I had to make you believe you were back in 1949 to really enjoy the story. So the atmosphere had to be really perfect. And, my goal is by the time you finish reading the book, you're going to have to dry clean your clothes, but to be full of cigarette smoke.
Right. Yeah, you got to remember that stuff too.
Yeah, everybody lights up back then. It's all, today, our smartphones are our cigarettes. You go into a restaurant, everybody takes out their smartphones. But back then, everybody took out their pack of smokes and lit up.
Interesting, yeah. There's a connection there. So tell me about if you were to go back in time to before your first book was published by a full-fledged publisher. I mean, you're so successful and so accomplished. Does the Wish You Well Foundation do that kind of thing to talk to the future David Baldacci's?
Yeah, for me, the reason I became a writer is because I was a voracious reader as a child, and my family took me to the library every week with my brother and sister, and we checked out a bunch of books. And even though I never had the opportunity to travel, I grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and we didn't have the opportunity to really travel, but I saw the world through books, and I understand what that can mean to someone's life. When I go into a room and I meet people, I can instantly tell who are readers and who are not. I find that readers are more tolerant, they're more patient, they're more open, and they're just, for me, they're more interesting people because they've seen more in life. Because books can really take you around the world, and even if you haven't had the opportunity to travel to those places, you could still understand what they're like and what people are like who live in those places. So, at the Wish You Well Foundation, our mission statement is simple: is to eradicate illiteracy in this country. And it's not just to allow people to read my books on the beach during the summer. It's to be an active participant in a democracy. We have so much information thrown at us every day that if you can't read and synthesize it and process it and make up your own mind about things, then, I live outside from the Washington, D.C. area. I can tell you that there are really highly paid, very intelligent people who will tell you what you're supposed to think and tell you how you're supposed to vote. And,
that's right, yeah.
That's not a good thing.
Hey, in my business, too. In radio, if you turn on any talk show, pretty much they're all telling you what you should think. So you got to be careful with that stuff, yeah.
And your character Archer is different from the other series that you have.
He is. He's sort of the everyman, and nothing too extraordinary about him, but he's a survivor, and he lives by his wits, and, he adapts to situations, and he makes mistakes. He falls. People ask, how do you make a character likable? And I said, well, you make them vulnerable. If you create a white knight, nobody is going to like that character because they're going to hate him because, this guy never makes a mistake, he never fails. How unrealistic is that? But in this book, Archer makes a lot of mistakes, and he falls down, but all I ask of him each time when he falls down is for him to get back up and keep moving and keep trying, and that's not a bad lesson for life in general. So I think people can relate to that and understand him better. And at the end of the book, I think that you come to know him intimately, and I think maybe you might see some elements of yourself in him, at least the potential of what you could be when you're thrown into an extraordinary situation like he was in One Good Deed.
The book is for very first week on the Amazon charts, and this is the full chart. This is not just the categorized charts. It is number 15 right off the bat. So 15 with a bullet, I guess, as we used to say in the music business. I actually have a copy of the book. I'd like to give it away to a listener. If somebody would like it, give me a call at 622-9622. I'll set it aside for you. Are the characters in this, and forgive me for not knowing this, are they in other books, or is this a departure for you?
Yeah, this is the brand new series for me. I started out as a short story. I was on book tour last year, wanted something to do in the evenings, and after a few months it had morphed into a 400-page novel, and the publisher didn't even know I was writing it, so they were very happy when I sent it up. And you'll see Archer back in another book, at least one more book, but this is a brand new series, which for me is great because I get to start with a blank page, and it's almost like, having another child again, and you just never know what you're going to get, but it's really, really exciting.
The post-war years in this country, anyway, it was an interesting time. I think we were still kind of numb from all that that had just gone on earlier. Is that part of the landscape of the book?
Yeah, that's exactly why I said it during that time period. It was a huge transition period for the United States. Men were coming back from the war, and women were being forced to leave the workforce and go back into the homes. Huge housing tracts were built across the country as the baby boomers started being born. People were seeking their fortunes. People were on the move. They wanted to get a fresh start. Wherever they lived, they wanted to go someplace else, and that's kind of what Archer was trying to do, is sort of a nomad. And it was probably the greatest upheaval we've had in this country in the last century, because we were a different country after World War II. And for me, that gave me a lot of exciting story possibilities in writing this one.
Mm-hmm. And when you write your books, it just seems like a lateral move to the big screen. You have all the dialogue and intrigue right there.
Yeah, they're sending out One Good Deed to Hollywood this week, and I think it'd make a great film. And some of the best films are set during that time period, and I like how it turned out. And we'll see. One thing about Hollywood is you never know what they're going to do. So unless they tell me the premiere date is set, then I don't pay attention.
Well, good for you. Good for you. Well, we've had our share of authors who were disappointed in the way a movie came out. So I don't know how I feel about that if I were in your shoes. I suppose it's exciting as long as it comes out as a good one. David, thank you for the book is good. It's really doing fabulous. It's number 1 in several categories, and number 15 in the overall chart, which is I don't think we've ever had a guest who had a number 15 on the overall chart. David Baldacci, thank you for being on the show with us today. That was good.
Thank you.
All right, we'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. Former Special Counsel Robert Mueller sitting down now to testify for the House Judiciary Committee. The Intelligence Committee's next.
Lawmakers